If you're over 70, there are daily habits that make an enormous difference in how you age. Not dramatic changes, but small, consistent actions that most people never connect to their long-term independence. I've watched this pattern play out hundreds of times. Two people, same age, similar health at 70. 10 years later, one is still driving, cooking their own meals, living independently. The other needs help with almost everything. The difference isn't luck. It's not genetics alone. It's often a handful of simple habits that one person kept and the other let slip away. Not because they didn't care, but because no one ever explained how much these small things actually matter. My name is Harold Bennett. I spent decades working as a life coach and community educator, and now in my early 70s, I spend a lot of time thinking about what actually helps people stay independent as they age. I'm not a doctor. I can't prescribe anything or diagnose conditions, but I can tell you what I've observed, what patterns I've seen again and again, and what seems to make the real difference when it comes to maintaining your quality of life in your later years. Today, I want to talk with you about habits. Simple ones. The kind of things that don't require special equipment, don't cost much money, and don't take a medical degree to understand. These are the daily choices that protect your health in ways most people never realize until it's too late. If you'd like more of these conversations, I'd appreciate it if you'd consider subscribing. But more importantly, I hope you'll stay with me through this, because what I'm going to share might change how you think about your daily routine. The first thing I want to talk about is something most people dismiss as unimportant: drinking enough water throughout the day. I know that sounds almost too simple to matter, but let me explain what I mean, because this isn't just about not being thirsty. As we age, our bodies lose some of their ability to signal thirst. You can be significantly dehydrated and not feel particularly thirsty at all. At the same time, our kidneys become less efficient at conserving water. This combination creates a real problem. Dehydration in older adults doesn't just make you uncomfortable. It affects your thinking. It affects your balance. It affects how your medications work in your body. Studies have shown that even mild dehydration can cause confusion, dizziness, and falls in people over 70. I've seen this pattern so many times. I knew two women, both 73, both living alone. Margaret drank a glass of water with each meal and kept a water bottle on her kitchen counter that she'd refill twice a day. She made it a habit, as routine as brushing her teeth. Susan, on the other hand, only drank when she felt thirsty, which wasn't often. She'd have her morning coffee and maybe a cup of tea in the afternoon, and that would be about it for fluids. Within a year, the difference was noticeable. Margaret's skin looked healthier, she rarely complained of headaches, and her doctor noted that her kidney function tests were excellent for her age. Susan, meanwhile, had been to the emergency room twice for dizziness and confusion. Both times, severe dehydration was the primary cause. She'd also developed a urinary tract infection that went unnoticed for too long because she wasn't paying attention to how little she was drinking. The connection is direct. When you don't drink enough water, your blood becomes thicker, making your heart work harder. Your kidneys struggle to filter waste. Your brain doesn't function as clearly because it's not getting the fluid it needs. Medications can become more concentrated in your system, potentially causing side effects. Constipation becomes a problem. Your body just doesn't work as well. The simple habit: pour yourself a glass of water first thing in the morning before coffee or tea. Keep water where you can see it. Drink a glass with each meal. If plain water doesn't appeal to you, add a slice of lemon or lime. The goal is about 6 to 8 glasses a day, but even increasing from 2 glasses to 4 makes a measurable difference. The second habit I want to discuss is moving your body every single day. Not exercise in the way you might think of it. Not joining a gym or running marathons. I'm talking about deliberate, consistent movement as part of your daily routine. Here's what I've noticed. When people retire and their daily structure disappears, movement often disappears with it. You don't have to walk to the car, walk through the parking lot, walk through the office. If you're not careful, you can go entire days barely moving beyond your chair and your bed. This is dangerous in ways that creep up on you. Your muscles don't just get weaker when you don't use them. They actually shrink. This process, called sarcopenia, accelerates after age 65. When your muscles shrink, your balance suffers. Your bones become more fragile because they're not being stressed by muscle pull. Your metabolism slows down. Your blood sugar regulation gets worse. Movement isn't just about fitness. It's about maintaining the basic physical capabilities you need to live independently. I watched this with two men in my neighborhood, Joe and Frank, both 76. Joe walked to his mailbox every day, took a lap around his yard morning and evening, and made a point of doing his own grocery shopping twice a week, even though his daughter offered to do it for him. Nothing strenuous, just consistent daily movement. Frank preferred to stay comfortable. He had his groceries delivered, drove everywhere, even short distances, and spent most of his day in his recliner watching television. He wasn't in pain. He just saw no reason to move more than necessary. 5 years later, Joe was still mowing his own lawn and taking walks with his grandchildren. Frank had fallen twice, fractured his hip the second time, and now needed a walker to get around his own house. The fall didn't happen because of bad luck. It happened because his leg muscles had weakened to the point where they couldn't catch him when he stumbled. His bones had become so fragile that a fall that might have bruised Joe badly broke Frank's hip. The habit is this: move deliberately every day. Walk for your house. Walk to the end of your driveway and back. Stand up from your chair without using your hands if you can. Take the stairs instead of waiting for the elevator if you're able. Go to the grocery store instead of having everything delivered. The movement doesn't have to be intense. It just has to happen every single day, without exception. Your body needs the signal that it still has work to do. Let me pause here for a moment. I hope this is making sense so far. These aren't complicated changes I'm talking about. They're small, but they compound over time in ways that genuinely protect your independence. The third thing I want you to think about is eating enough protein. This is something I see people get wrong all the time, and it connects directly to what I just said about muscle loss. Many older adults, especially those living alone, start eating less protein without realizing it. Protein takes more effort to prepare than toast or cereal. It's often more expensive than pasta or crackers. It can be harder to chew if you have dental problems. So people gradually shift toward easier, cheaper, softer foods that happen to be low in protein. This seems harmless, but it accelerates muscle loss dramatically. Your body can't store protein the way it stores fat or carbohydrates. Every day, your muscles break down a certain amount of protein, and every day, you need to eat enough protein to rebuild what was lost. If you don't, your muscles gradually shrink, not because you're aging, but because you're not feeding them what they need. Research shows that older adults actually need more protein per pound of body weight than younger adults, not less, because our bodies become less efficient at using it. I remember two women from a community group I used to lead, Carol and Nancy, both in their early 80s. Carol made sure to have protein at every meal: eggs or yogurt at breakfast, chicken, fish, or beans at lunch, some kind of meat or cheese at dinner. She wasn't eating huge portions, but she was consistent about it. Nancy, meanwhile, often had toast and jam for breakfast, a small salad for lunch, and maybe some soup and crackers for dinner. She thought she was eating healthy because she was eating vegetables and not overeating. But she was barely getting 30 or 40 grams of protein a day when her body needed closer to 70 or 80. 2 years later, Carol was still gardening, carrying her own groceries, and getting down on the floor to play with her great-grandchildren. Nancy had become noticeably frail. She'd lost muscle mass in her arms and legs. She tired easily. She'd started using a cane not because of joint problems, but because she didn't trust her legs to hold her steady. Her doctor told her she was experiencing significant muscle wasting, and when they reviewed her diet, the protein deficiency was obvious. The simple habit: make sure every meal includes a good source of protein: eggs, chicken, fish, beans, Greek yogurt, cottage cheese, nuts, or lean meat. If chewing is difficult, try softer options like eggs, yogurt, or well-cooked beans. If you live alone and don't want to cook, keep simple protein sources on hand like hard-boiled eggs, canned tuna, rotisserie chicken from the store, or protein shakes. You don't need to count grams obsessively, but you do need protein at every meal, not just dinner. The fourth habit I want to discuss is maintaining social connection. This might seem less obviously physical than the other habits I've mentioned, but the research on this is quite clear, and what I've observed matches it perfectly. Isolation is dangerous to your health in measurable ways. When you're socially isolated, your risk of cognitive decline increases significantly. Your immune system doesn't function as well. Your blood pressure tends to be higher. You're more likely to become depressed, and depression in older adults often manifests as physical symptoms like pain, fatigue, and memory problems. Loneliness isn't just an emotional state. It creates stress in your body that affects your physical health. I've seen this pattern repeatedly. People who lose a spouse and then withdraw from their social connections often decline rapidly, not because grief itself is dangerous, but because the isolation that follows can be. You stop having reasons to leave the house. You stop having conversations that challenge your thinking. You stop having people who notice if something's wrong. Think about Robert and Walter, both 74, both widowed within a few months of each other. Robert forced himself to keep attending his church group every Sunday, even though it was hard at first without his wife. He joined a coffee group that met Tuesday mornings at the local diner. He made a point of calling one of his children every other day, even if just for a few minutes. He didn't always feel like it, but he did it anyway. Walter, meanwhile, felt that social activities without his wife would be too painful, so he stopped going. He meant to stay in touch with people, but weeks would go by between phone calls. He'd see his children at holidays, but otherwise, he was alone most of the time. 3 years later, Robert was still sharp mentally, still engaged with current events, still telling stories and laughing with friends. Walter had developed significant memory problems. His family had noticed he was repeating himself, forgetting appointments, sometimes seeming confused about what day it was. The difference wasn't inevitable. Part of what kept Robert's mind sharp was that he was using it in conversation, being challenged by other people's perspectives, having to remember plans and keep track of relationships. The habit is this: maintain regular social contact, even when you don't feel like it. Join a group. Call someone at least twice a week. Attend religious services if that's part of your life. Volunteer somewhere. Go to the senior center. Accept invitations even when it's tempting to stay home. If you can't get out easily, video calls count. Phone conversations count. The key is regular, meaningful interaction with other people. The fifth thing I've observed making a real difference is getting enough sleep, and more specifically, protecting your sleep quality. This is another one that people tend to dismiss as less important than it actually is. As you age, your sleep patterns change. You might not sleep as deeply as you used to. You might wake up more often during the night. This is normal to some degree, but chronic poor sleep has serious consequences. It affects your memory and thinking. It weakens your immune system. It increases inflammation in your body. It affects your balance and reaction time, making falls more likely. Studies have found that older adults who consistently sleep less than 6 hours a night have higher rates of cognitive decline and dementia. But here's the thing. Poor sleep in older adults often isn't inevitable. It's often the result of habits that can be changed. Napping too long during the day, having caffeine late in the afternoon, keeping an irregular sleep schedule, sleeping with the television on, not getting enough light exposure during the day. I knew 2 women, Eleanor and Barbara, both 77, both complaining about not sleeping well. Eleanor decided to treat sleep like a priority. She stopped drinking coffee after noon. She started going to bed and waking up at the same time every day, even on weekends. She made sure her bedroom was dark and cool. She turned off the television an hour before bed and read instead. She made a point of getting outside in natural sunlight for at least 20 minutes every morning, because she'd read that helps regulate your sleep cycle. Barbara kept irregular hours, napped whenever she felt tired during the day, sometimes for 2 or 3 hours at a time, drank Diet Cola throughout the afternoon, and fell asleep with the television on most nights. When she couldn't sleep, she'd get frustrated and stay in bed tossing and turning for hours. A year later, Eleanor was sleeping 6 to 7 hours most nights, waking up feeling rested and noticing that her thinking was clearer and her mood was better. Barbara was still struggling, still tired during the day, still foggy mentally, and her doctor had started talking about sleep medication, which Barbara wanted to avoid because she'd heard it could increase fall risk. The habit: protect your sleep with consistent routines. Go to bed and wake up at the same time every day. Get morning sunlight exposure if possible. Limit caffeine to mornings only. Keep naps short, 30 minutes or less, and not late in the day. Make your bedroom dark, quiet, and cool. If you can't fall asleep within 30 minutes, get up and do something quiet until you feel sleepy, rather than lying there frustrated. Your brain needs quality sleep to clear out waste products that accumulate during the day. Your body needs it to repair and regulate itself. If you're finding this helpful so far, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Have you noticed any of these patterns in your own life or in people you know? The sixth habit I want to mention is staying on top of your dental health. This might seem unrelated to overall health, but the connections are stronger than most people realize, and I've seen how quickly dental problems can spiral into bigger health issues. Poor dental health in older adults leads to pain that makes eating difficult. When eating is painful, people start avoiding certain foods, especially the ones that require chewing, which tend to be the most nutritious ones. Vegetables, fruits, meat. They shift towards soft, processed foods that are easier to eat but lower in nutrients. This leads to malnutrition, which weakens the entire body. But beyond that, infections in your mouth don't stay in your mouth. The bacteria from gum disease can enter your bloodstream and contribute to heart disease, diabetes complications, and respiratory infections. Research has found connections between poor oral health and increased risk of dementia, though scientists are still working to understand exactly why. I watched this play out with two men I knew, both 79. One took care of his teeth. He brushed twice a day, flossed regularly, and saw his dentist every 6 months, even though he had to arrange rides to get there. The other let his dental care slide. His gums bled when he brushed, so he brushed more gently and less often. He had a broken tooth he kept meaning to get fixed, but never got around to. He stopped flossing because it hurt. Within 2 years, the second man had lost several teeth, developed a serious gum infection that required antibiotics, and had stopped eating many of the foods he used to enjoy because chewing had become too difficult. He'd lost weight, not because he was trying to, but because eating had become such an unpleasant experience. His overall health declined. His doctor noted that he'd become malnourished and his diabetes had become harder to control. The simple habit: brush your teeth twice a day, gently but thoroughly. Floss or use interdental cleaners once a day. See a dentist regularly, even if nothing hurts. If you're having trouble affording dental care, look into dental schools or community health centers that offer reduced cost services. If you have dentures, clean them daily and make sure they fit properly. Don't ignore mouth pain or bleeding gums. Treat dental care as essential preventive health care, not optional maintenance. The seventh thing I've noticed protecting people's health as they age is keeping their mind actively engaged. Not just entertained, but genuinely challenged. This goes beyond doing crossword puzzles, though those can be part of it. I'm talking about continuing to learn new things, engage with complex ideas, and push your thinking. Your brain, like your muscles, operates on a use it or lose it principle. When you stop challenging it, it becomes less efficient. Neural connections that aren't used regularly begin to weaken. This isn't the same as inevitable dementia. This is normal cognitive aging that can be significantly slowed by keeping your mind active in meaningful ways. The key is that the activity has to actually be challenging. Watching television doesn't count, even if it's educational programming, because you're passively receiving information. Reading the same kind of books you've always read helps maintain your baseline, but it doesn't push you forward. What seems to make the difference is learning genuinely new skills or engaging with genuinely new ideas that make your brain work in different ways. I knew two people, both in their early 80s, who took very different approaches to this. One decided to learn to use a computer and email so she could stay in touch with her grandchildren who lived far away. It was frustrating at first. She had to ask for help repeatedly. She made mistakes and had to figure out how to fix them. But she kept at it, and eventually she was sending emails, looking things up online, even video calling her family. She also joined a book club that read challenging books and had deep discussions about them. The other person felt that at his age, he'd earned the right to just relax. He watched television most of the day. He reread old favorite books sometimes, but mostly he just sat. He'd worked hard his whole life, and he saw no reason to strain his brain anymore. 5 years later, the difference in their mental sharpness was striking. The woman who'd learned new skills was still quick-witted, still curious, still engaged with the world around her. She could hold complex conversations and remember details from weeks ago. The man who'd stopped challenging himself had become noticeably slower mentally. He struggled to follow complicated conversations. His memory had declined significantly. He often seemed lost in the present moment, disconnected from what was happening around him. The habit: do something that genuinely challenges your thinking on a regular basis. Learn a new skill. Take a class. Have deep conversations about complex topics. Read books that make you think differently. Do puzzles, but vary the types. Learn a language. Take up a musical instrument. Volunteer for something that requires you to solve problems and make decisions. The specific activity matters less than the fact that it pushes you beyond your comfortable routine. Let me bring this together for you. None of these habits by themselves will guarantee perfect health as you age. Life doesn't work that way. But together, these simple, daily choices create a foundation that protects your independence and quality of life in ways that are measurable and real. Drinking enough water keeps your body functioning properly and your mind clear. Moving every day maintains the muscle strength and bone density you need to stay steady on your feet. Eating enough protein gives your body what it needs to maintain those muscles. Staying socially connected protects both your mental and physical health. Getting quality sleep allows your brain and body to repair themselves. Taking care of your teeth prevents a cascade of health problems. And keeping your mind challenged maintains your cognitive abilities. These aren't medical interventions. They're choices you can make today, right now, without permission from anyone. Small changes that become habits that become protection. I want you to think about your own life for a moment. Which of these areas needs attention? You don't have to fix everything at once. That's overwhelming and unnecessary. Pick one habit, the one that resonated most with you or the one that feels most urgent. Start there. Make it consistent. Give it a month to become routine. Then add another. You are not powerless over how you age. You have more control than you might think. Not complete control, but real influence. The daily choices you make matter. They compound over time. They can be the difference between staying independent and losing your autonomy, between staying sharp and declining faster than necessary. If you found this conversation helpful, I hope you'll consider subscribing to this channel. I create these videos because I genuinely believe this information can help people protect the things that matter most as they age. And if you know someone who might benefit from hearing this, someone who's maybe struggling with these issues or just not thinking about them yet, please share it with them. Thank you for spending this time with me. I'd truly love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Take care of yourself. You're worth the effort.